Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I am here today to do my Friday Reads video where I recap the week in reading and any kind of bookish thing. It's really exciting because we're heading into the Christmas week, which means we're heading really close into the end of the year. And that is kind of surprising. I will get to the Friday Reads updates in a little bit. The only update I have from the bookish world is something that if you watched my 26 random questions book tag, which I will link in the description box down below, you already know this, but I watched The Power of the Dog this week. I've been talking about it a fair amount because I really wanted to read the book before I watched the movie. I managed to get the book in, and now I finally managed to watch the movie. Now, I will tell you, I really liked the movie. I have a lot of thoughts about how it compares to the book. I have already been hard at work creating a blog post going over the similarities and the differences. I wanted to try to do that while it was all fresh up in the old noggin. So I've got that done. I just need to read it through, edit, I don't want to just publish a first draft. It's pretty extensive. It's funny because it's not that different from the book, but a lot of the changes are pretty significant. It's like the opposite of Passing. The reason I haven't done a book versus movie adaptation comparison for Passing is that the movie is remarkably similar to the book in such a way that I almost feel like I don't really have anything to talk about. I might still do one because I can think of two differences. One of them is kind of minor, and the other one maybe feels a little significant, but not really. So I don't know. I might still do a Passing book versus movie comparison, but they are very similar. The Power of the Dog, very different story. There are some pretty significant changes, both in terms of additions, in terms of things that don't make it from the book to the movie, and in terms of things that are changed. And I don't want to go into them. I already want to talk about them, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. What I will say is that I have the book right here because I've been referencing it. So I'll hold it up. It's very difficult to adapt a book like this as a movie because since you have an authorial presence telling you the story, you can move between all of the different consciousnesses of the characters and see what they're thinking and feeling and why they're doing things. And you can get all of the backstory without the characters expressing any of that outwardly. But for a movie, unless you do a voiceover, you can't get any of that unless you make a change so that somebody vocalizes something that's going on in their head or something that happened in the past. So there were bound to be differences, but I find the differences really interesting. And I will be talking more about that. I don't know when I'm going to manage to film the video. If there's time today, I would love to do it, but likelihood is it's just going to be next week at some point. So stay tuned for my book versus movie adaptation comparison of The Power of the Dog. I will say, I really liked the movie. I did really like it. I do hope that Jane Campion wins Best Director. I think she does a marvelous job adapting the book. I think she does really smart things, and I hope she wins Best Director. I really do. I will say, I think my favorite movie of the year so far, and I haven't seen West Side Story, I haven't seen a couple of the other really big contenders. I think my favorite movie of the year is Tick, Tick, Boom, which was directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda and is on Netflix right now. And that is actually also a really interesting adaptation because it is based on a musical that was written by Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent. It's the musical he wrote before Rent. But it's also really about Jonathan Larson's life and the process of creating the musical that he wrote before Tick, Tick, Boom, which was called Superbia. And it becomes a sort of meta thing. So it is an adaptation of Tick, Tick, Boom, but it's also a biopic about Jonathan Larson. And there are so many little Easter eggs for people who are fans of Broadway. If you've heard about the Sunday sequence, it is a treat. It is a real treat. I actually was gasping and shouting by the end of it as I started recognizing Broadway people who just showed up for cameos in it. It's a really good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. And about the creation of art and how dedicated you have to be as an artist. I heard a really fascinating interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda on a podcast that I listened to, done by Vanity Fair, called Little Gold Men. Seek it out if you'd like to. They always have an interview at the back end of each episode, and I can't remember what was in the front half of that episode, but check it out. It's a really interesting thing, and he talks about how he saw Tick, Tick, Boom performed in the late 90s, and it really spoke to what he was going to want to do, and he had a lot of really interesting things to say about how he thought about it and approached things. Like even just, I don't want to talk about it too much, but the fact that he cast Robin DeJesus in a role that most people try to cast somebody who looks business-ish, because it's somebody who used to be an aspiring actor and is now an advertising executive. And he talked about when you cast somebody like Robin DeJesus, you clearly understand that this person used to have artistic aspirations and they're not living that life anymore. It's a really interesting movie. I'd recommend it if you have not watched it. I still need to see West Side Story. I still need to see King Richard so I can really kind of judge Best Actor. I haven't seen The Tragedy of Macbeth yet. There are a lot that I still need to see. But right now, I think Tick, Tick, Boom is my favorite new movie of the year. And Jane Campion is probably my favorite director. If I were going to say Best Actor, I think I would still give an edge to Andrew Garfield as Best Actor over Benedict Cumberbatch, as good as he is in The Power of the Dog. If you've seen it, I'd love to hear what you think. No spoilers in the comment section down below, because I think there's a lot to say about that. Now, anyway, I don't have a 3K Q&A question because I finished my last one and I didn't get to my booktube advice video this week. I'm just going to stop talking about any of these things. I got really distracted as soon as I watched The Power of the Dog. I really wanted to work on my book versus movie post, so I'm sorry. If you're interested in that, it's still going to come, but I just haven't made any progress on it. So I'm going to stop promising to have things done at a specific point because I fail at life when it comes to those things. But anyway, let's get into the actual Friday Reads portion of this video. I'm going to put The Power of the Dog over here for now. So if you remember in last week's video, the print book that I was reading was Work Like Any Other by Virginia Reeves. I've been falling into this trend where I will make a lot of progress on a print book on the weekend, and then as soon as you get into the work week, my progress stalls. That happened to me again this week. I was on page 80 when we last spoke, and I'm on page 163 right now. And I think that means I have 100 pages left. So it should be, there are 260 pages. So I'm about 100 pages from the end. I'm really liking this book a lot. And I think it's kind of an undiscovered gem, which seems like a weird thing to say since it was longlisted for the Booker Prize in 2016. But it feels like nobody talks about this book. I only heard about it because it was recommended to me by the people at Montana Book Company, and I'm really enjoying it. Joel read it this year, and he really liked it as well. I can't wait to see how things start to come together in the end. I mentioned in last week's Friday Reads, which I will link down below as well, that for that first section of the book, there are alternating chapters. In one, the main character, Roscoe Martin, is in prison because he stole electricity from power lines. It's set in the early 1900s. He stole electricity from power lines in order to get electricity on the farm where his family lives. And a man from the power company discovered this and accidentally electrocuted himself, and Roscoe is in prison for it. So in one chapter, Roscoe's in prison, and then it would go back and tell the story of sort of how that ended up happening. But when I left off on page 80, he had officially had his trial and gone to prison, so I didn't know what the alternating chapters were going to be. Well, we get some additional perspectives, and I won't spoil what it is, but I think the additional perspectives you start to get really add a lot of interesting texture to this book. And I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm really enjoying it. This is something I'm finishing so I can complete my Montana Book Company reading challenge for 2021. I will link the video where I talk about that down below because I ran through all of the things I was reading to meet those criteria and finish up the year and be done with it. So this is one of them. So once I'm done with this, I will only have 2 more books. And one of them is the one that I am currently listening to on audio. That is The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. So once I finish these, I'll only have 1 left. Now, I made some progress with this over the weekend, and then in the beginning of the week, I just went through a couple of days where I didn't listen very much. And now I'm coming to the point where it's going to be due back I only have access for another 3 days, I think. So I need to make some progress because I'm only halfway through. I feel like this is one of those circumstances where the fact that people talk about this and say things like, oh, I really hated the ending, or, oh, I loved the twist at the end, makes you feel like you're trying to figure the book out. And I wonder if I've figured it out. And I'm not going to say what my speculation is about this. But I'm only halfway through, and I feel like I know what the twist is going to be. We'll see. I'll tell you if I'm right or wrong. I have no vanity about whether or not I was right. But I think that's going to be interesting. And I wouldn't be doing that if I hadn't heard so much about this book in the 20 years since it was published, where people would say things like, oh, I really hated the revelation at the end or something like that. Similarly, I was just talking to Joel about this morning. I feel like I saw The Sixth Sense in a movie theater later in its run. So by the time I saw it, everybody was talking about the twist ending. And I saw the first scene of the movie and figured out the ending. So it's just that, I don't know if I'm right or wrong. We'll see. But I am really enjoying this. Margaret Atwood is a great writer. It feels like it was very difficult to get into the audio because the book kind of defies narrative in the beginning. I got a lot of comments of people telling me that they don't think I'm going to get a good experience of the book. I hear what you're saying. I think the audio experience is fine. You just really had to orient yourself in the beginning. The whole middle of the book so far, once you get beyond the first hour, maybe the first 2 hours, it's almost a straight narrative at that point. So I don't feel like I'm missing anything at that point. It's just a struggle to orient yourself in the universe of the book, given the way that Margaret Atwood kind of formats it. But it's a really interesting story. She's a great writer. I am looking forward to finishing it and finding out if my guess is right or not. So Work Like Any Other ticks the box for a local author. Virginia Reeves lives in Montana. This ticks the box for Margaret Atwood novel. You have to read a Margaret Atwood novel, and this is the one I chose. I wanted to get something that had been on my TBR for a very long time off the list. I did a poll in my Instagram stories, and this is the one that won. So I'm glad that I'm finally getting around to it and that I am experiencing it. I'm enjoying it. We'll see if I'm right about the end. I could be wrong. I could very well be wrong. All shall be revealed. So I am going to definitely work on a print book once I finish Work Like Any Other. I have to, because the only other book I have left is Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. I actually remembered to grab my copy so I could hold it up right now. I'm so proud of myself because I've forgotten a lot recently. So this will be the last book that I have to do for my Montana Book Company Reading Challenge for 2021. Again, if you'd like to hear what the challenge is and how I met all of the other prompts, you can check out the link in the description box down below. This would meet the brief for a book that was published the year a parent was born. And I love James Baldwin, so I'm very excited to be getting back to a book of his. And I was thinking today, I had talked about trying to cram other books in before the end of the year, but Christmas is a week from today. I'm filming this on Friday, the 17th. Christmas Eve is exactly a week from today. 3 days after Christmas, we need to be at a follow-up appointment for a specialist for Guinness. And then at that point, we're really heading into New Year's. So I'm kind of thinking I might do another audiobook once I finish The Blind Assassin. I had said that I was going to do The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. That's a really long audiobook. I might still do that. I might pick a different audiobook instead. Something a little easier to coast into the end of the year. And I'm definitely going to get this in. But once I finish the audio of The Blind Assassin, once I finish Work Like Any Other and this, I might just call it for the year. I haven't really decided yet. I'm going to wait and see what my reading mood is like toward the end of next week. And a lot will depend on how quickly I finish Work Like Any Other and how quickly I finish Go Tell It on the Mountain. Because here's the thing. Tomorrow we're going to be running a bunch of errands, and then we need to bake a cake. And Sunday we need to go to Helena for my father-in-law's birthday. His birthday is the 23rd, so we're trying to do something separate from Christmas. So given that there's a lot going to be packed into this weekend, I might not make a lot of progress on Work Like Any Other. So basically, look, this is a long way of saying my reading year might come to an end with these 3 books. And honestly, I would be okay with that. This is a really strong set of 3 books to close out a reading year. I mean, I haven't even started Go Tell It on the Mountain, but based on my past experiences with James Baldwin, I fully believe that that would be the story. So I would be okay with that. And one of the things I really want to work on is not feeling pressured to continue to read and or to perform, basically, because I have a BookTube channel. It's really easy to get into a mindset where you constantly think you need to have things to talk about, because what else am I going to talk about? So I might very well stop my reading year once those are done, but I might still cram something in. So we shall see. All shall be revealed. I've been thinking about my favorite books of the year. So if I stop at those, you might get my list in December. You might still wait until January, but I have a very fun way that I'm going to be presenting them this year. And I'll reveal what that is a little later. So if I do end my reading year with those books, it's bad news for The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, because I had gotten this from the library. I was on a really, 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 really long wait list for it, and my turn came up. So I picked this up on Sunday of last week, and I was really hoping that I could finish Work Like Any Other, finish Go Tell It on the Mountain, and then pick this up. But it's a 14-day loan, so I only have another week come Sunday. And I've made slow progress. So I think what I'm going to do is return this and get back on the hold list. I know it's going to take a really long time to get it back, because the hold list is insane for this book, but you know what? It's going to be fine. I also just got an email yesterday that another hold is available at the library, Hell of a Book by Jason Mott, and I would like to read that, but I don't think now's the time. So similar to what's going to happen with this, I think I'm going to return this tomorrow, because we'll be downtown near the library anyway. And I'm just going to let the hold of Hell of a Book go, and I'll get back on the hold list for both of them and see when they come around. I think Hell of a Book will come around a lot faster than The Sentence, but I don't want to assume anything. So that's probably what the rest of my reading year is going to look like. I think the more I talk about it, the more I think it makes sense to just end, not put any pressure after I finish these 3 books, because it's been a tough year for a lot of reasons. And depending how the follow-up appointment for Guinness goes, I might not want to read that last week of the year anyway. And it's a good excuse to enjoy time with my husband, Joel, because this is going to be our first holiday in a while as empty. I jokingly refer to us as empty nesters now. I guess it is true. Our foster son moved out, so we are empty nesters. But after 4 years, it's our first holiday with ourselves and the dogs in the house. So I think it's finishing up my reading year gives me an excuse to really enjoy some quality time with Joel, because he will be off and I will be off. And I think that would be a nice thing. So anyway, I would love to hear what you've been up to, what's been going on in your bookish world. If you've watched The Power of the Dog and read the book, again, please let me know in the comment section, because I am so happy to talk about that. And let me know what you've been reading. If you have thoughts on any of the things that I've talked about or read, anything, let me know in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.